If not, can we have a motion to approve it? Motion by Alder Gisselman, second by Alder Denny. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That passes unanimously. Item 2 on the agenda is discussion and possible action on state municipal agreement regarding East Wausau Avenue from North 6th Street to North 18th Street. I will open it up for discussion. Yes.
I'll make
Alder.
a motion that we approve the item.
Any seconds? Okay, well, the motion has been made and seconded. I guess I have a couple questions on this I would like to ask. First of all, when is this going to be completed?
Well, it'll be on the state's to-do list, I guess. It'll be on their 7-year program. So it could be typically a minimum of 3 years. By the time they get a consultant chosen, design, there may be some real estate and, the whole it's typically at least a 3-year process.
Because this street really needs it.
It does.
It's bad.
So this was very good news when it came to engineering, because we had been requesting this. Eric and I's meeting with the DOT, when we meet them every time, we'd try and get this on their radar, and they finally agreed to do it. So I think this is very good news, because I think, me personally, this is probably the most complained about street in the city that I get. So
Yes.
the fact that they're going to do it, now we can tell the residents that, hey, it's on the DOT's list to do.
And I'm
So-
also questioning about the $58,500 in design costs for the city. I was under the impression that, perhaps I'm wrong, but all this was taken care of by the state.
All the construction cost will be, other than sewer and water. They don't pay for sewer and water costs, but they will be responsible for 100% of the construction cost. But it's been a typical agreements with connecting highways that the city is responsible for 25% of the engineering.
I see. So when they come up with the city and the sewer and water, that, I guess that will come to us in a future date then too, when they're more zoned in on a date. Is that correct? I mean, obviously, we're going to have to find money for sewer and water for that street then. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in a future budget, well, whatever the
Yes.
design calls for sewer and water, yes, the sewer and water budget will need to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Alder Denny?
Yeah, question. So the sewer and water, is a given that will happen, or the street repair can be done without that? I don't know what the status of that is.
Yeah, usually we do our best to plan for that budgeting. Right now, we don't know what year. So through the commission and the water and sewer budget, when we know the year that they're going to do the work, then we'll go ahead and budget for that work within the utility.
Okay, but age-wise, it's a given that would have to be done?
It needs to be done.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah, it does.
Alder Gisselman?
Well, I would agree. It's my district, and I've been hearing some complaints, so I think when I take this news back to the 5th District and the neighborhood, I think they're going to be glad to see this on the horizon. So, a question, Alan, why stop at 6? Was there a reason not coming down to 5th, or was that a natural?
Well, Fifth is newer concrete pavement, so that's in pretty good shape.
Okay, because there's been some complaints about that island in front of Athletic Park, and, we've talked about that before, but thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. Item 3, discussion and possible action on extension of Kickbush Street to Washington Street and entering into a development agreement with the Wausau School District.
So I guess I can just start this off a little bit. We have had some meetings with the school district, and they're present in the audience. I mean, we had discussions in the past on how to get this done, and the school district, you know, has come to us and stated that they're willing to build the road, and asking for the city, if the city would be willing to enter into a developers agreement where the city would take the road over once they build it. There's other issues that would be addressed in, but I wanted to bring it to this committee because in the end, it's going to be up to the city whether they want to take the road over or not, and work with the district on this. Like the rest of the information's in the packet, so I guess we can have a discussion from there. Larry Seiler is here from the school district, and also REI is here. Mike Moore.
Would you folks like to come up and address this?
Do I need, okay, it's on. So I actually handed out a plan that might be a little bit easier to look at than what was in in your packet. Obviously, this was in the referendum. It's been in the referendum planning for 3 years now. The point or purpose in this is to address that dead-end situation at Hawthorne School. And obviously, you know, for folks that have been there, you know that it gets really, really congested, particularly during drop-off and pickup times, to the point that we're really concerned if something were to happen during those times, we couldn't get emergency vehicles in there. It's difficult for parents. It just gets so congested. And then you have folks making, you know, maybe not the best decisions when it comes to driving when it gets that congested. So the cost of the road, we're working with the city, as Alan mentioned. The city, or the street would be designed and built to the city's specifications. And at that point, you know, the school district obviously doesn't have a point or purpose or a desire to own a city street. And that's where we would look to turn the street over to the city so that it would be a city street and maintain the same as any other city street.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Given our affinity for smooth traffic flow, obviously this extension makes sense, and given the cost of road construction in general, it certainly makes sense that we would partner with the district, especially since they will have funds available to complete the extension, as long as it's built to our specs and as long as they address design and stormwater issues. I think this is a good partnership for us to have. So, and I agree also, I think school safety is close to my heart, and, you know, I think that anybody's ability to flow emergency vehicles in and out of a building or move people in and out of the area quickly is critical, especially now. So I think we should move forward, and I'll make a motion that we approve the plan and direct staff to work with the district to negotiate an agreement.
I would second that, and I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Alder Denny.
Is this 100% school property? Are there residential implications here with where the street will be crossing?
No, that's entirely district property. The new street is completely contained on district property.
Okay, so both sides, so you've got that whole chunk of land up top.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, right. So I can maybe clarify that. Yeah, it is on school district property, other than the small portion right where it hooks up to 14th Street. The city does have existing right-of-way there where it goes in between those two homes. So that right-of-way is there, or was planned in that plat for the extension of a roadway, but that would be the only part where this roadway would not be on the school district's land. But it would be put on existing city right-of-way where there is not a roadway now.
And that was on the official map all along, right?
That right-of-way is in the plat, so that is existing.
Okay, that's fine.
I guess can I throw one more out there?
Go ahead.
Do we need to look at how traffic will flow up in that Washington Street area, 14th Street? I mean, have we looked at how this will work? I mean, you anticipate like directing people one way through here? Is there a loop through the school property to drop kids off? I mean, what's going to change in the traffic flow for the pickup drop off?
So obviously, the biggest advantage is the fact that it's not one way in, one way out, or one artery in, one artery out. We would anticipate traffic comes in there. The bus drop-off would be that small loop, I don't have a good way of pointing to it, kind of on the left-hand side. So the buses drop off in there, and then the cars would circle into the parking lot, drop their student off and exit. We have engaged the police department as well as the city about, what's the best way. I know there's reluctance to create one-way streets, as I understand it.
Alder Gusman, did you have a question? Oh,
I'll speak to that a little bit
Okay,
too,
sure, go
Alderman
ahead.
Russ, if you don't. So we have looked at traffic impacts a little bit. Washington Street was reconstructed. The only section that would need to be looked at would be that first block west of 14th. That one block does not have curb and gutter, and it's in pretty rough shape. So if this does get approved and go through, we would have to look at either at a minimum an asphalt overlay, or preferably to reconstruct that one block. I think a temporary street was just in there. So we may have to look at reconstructing that one block, because there will be a decent amount of traffic on that one block of Washington. Well, all the way down, we'd anticipate 10th Street is the next kind of major arterial, so I would anticipate traffic would obviously pick up between 14th and 10th. But we would need to do something with that one block of Washington Street, the city would.
Alder Gusman.
Is there any thought about or is that the white line, a bicycle, pedestrian, sidewalk, off-road, or is that what the white line is? Because I would imagine that this would be a good way for some students to get into that other area instead of taking on the traffic of Washington, I think. But I would hope that this would be off the street as such, right? Or how are you thinking about doing that?
Correct. We're anticipating a sidewalk to run alongside that street. We're going back and forth as to should it be on the north side of the street or the south side. But yes, there's a sidewalk anticipated as part of this construction.
And what about a bicycle? Because I would imagine there would be also some bicycle traffic. I think this would be a good loop for future bicycle. I mean, you're going past Path Woods, and, this is a pretty scenic. Any thought about a separate bicycle, or maybe not?
That's a great thought. We hadn't honestly thought about a bicycle path, and I don't know what implication that creates with the construction of the road, if that means it's a wider road or if it's shaped differently. And I don't know what a bicycle path would connect to on either end. I'm not familiar with whether or not there's a bicycle path on Kickbush or on the other end when it connects to Washington.
Yeah, but I think, just while we're creating something, I think it's, good to take a look at, we're creating, at least a separate, you're right, you're dealing with Kickbush and those streets, which are regular streets, but, while we're creating something, I think it would be good to start the movement in the city towards creating those types of bicycle, as well as the sidewalk, the pedestrian lane, so to speak.
Okay, we can certainly work with the city on what that means from a planning perspective.
Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. One thing that we had talked about in the past, rather than trying to accommodate, especially with new street construction, accommodate bikes in the travel lanes, is, there was some discussion at one point, and I don't know if we've built any yet, but talk of installing the sidewalk at a width such that it could accommodate bicycles and pedestrians off-street at the same time. So just build a little wider sidewalk and the two can share, rather than have to have a separate bike path and separate construction costs for that. So if that's an option and there's land for it, maybe that would be one thing they could look at.
Right, I would agree, just so that in the construction, there would be some way of separating, because I think sometimes, separating those two lanes, Lisa's right about widening that out, that would be a great idea, but, some type of a, I don't know how we
Some
would separate
delineation.
those, right, separate those type of paths out so that people would know where to work, where to walk, as well as to where to ride their bicycle.
Okay, well, like I said, we'll work with the city on what that design needs to look like.
Good deal.
And we can bring, future designs back, and this was just to make sure that this committee was aware of it, and that they support it, and that we can move ahead, and that they can move ahead with their consultants and design it. So Larry, would you mind sharing a time frame with this too?
So we're anticipating, pending approval, that we would begin clearing and testing this fall, and then get as much excavating done as we can this fall, and then once load limits are lifted in the spring, then construction of the actual street would take on more urgency next summer, and the hope would be to wrap it up by the next school year. Again, there's a lot of things that can affect that timeline, but that's the plan.
Alder Henke.
I'm assuming that other white line there is a right-of-way that we have for a road, the one to the west of the school?
Correct, that's some existing right-of-way that goes up in there too, and that's kind of never really been cleaned up, so I don't know if the school has thoughts of maybe, some of it serves some property to the west, so they may want that, but there's some of it that could be, but that is an existing right-of-way that was from the old plat. And the school will be submitting a new plat, so I don't know if they're going to be cleaning some of that up, or
Yeah,
If they get
it might be a
thoughts
good, might be a good time to just tie it into this new road and, so that the right-of-way is still there.
We briefly talked about that, whether that plat or that right-of-way is there today or not, doesn't affect the roadway that we're proposing, but it's certainly a great time to clean that all up as long as we're going through the motions.
Any other discussion? There has been a motion and a second. All those in favor of moving forward with this signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And that passes unanimously.
If the committee would indulge me, from a timeline perspective, because the developers agreement is sort of an anomaly, you normally don't have a school district working with a municipality with a land exchange. Can we kind of lay out a timeline of where these approvals need to go, because we need to dovetail them together with our school board approvals as well? So from this committee, the next approval is where and when?
we'll have to look at that. Larry, I believe the next step would be a plat or a CSM dedicating the right-of-way, and then the city would have to accept that right-of-way.
Okay, that would come before the CISM committee as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. And the development agreement gets handled by staff
okay,
to work. I mean, this is going to be a relatively simple developers agreement because there's not going to be money changing hand. It's basically going to spell out, that this school district's going to be building it and the city's going to be maintaining it. The only really cooperation may be the stormwater, but that would get spelled out. So the developers agreement can happen, simultaneously, but the next step would be to get the plat or the CSM approved
okay,
at this committee level and at plan.
okay, very good, thank you.
And then it would have to go on for final council approval, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, thank you.
Did we have a vote on this? Yes, we did. Discussion, item 4, discussion and possible action on roadway width of Bugbee Avenue. TJ.
All right, so as stated per municipal code, the minimum roadway width is 32 feet. Once we got into design and closer to construction, we met with some residents and they were concerned about having their driveway widths reduced. All the residents east of McCarthy Boulevard would have lost about 8 feet to 10 feet of their driveway. So what we did, we went back to the drawing board and shifted that road north so that they could maintain their driveway width. And then for that last, about 150 to 200 feet just east of Tierney, we narrowed that section of road to, I believe, was it 24 feet. We discussed this with all of the residents that would be affected, and they were all in agreement with this plan. So staff recommends that we approve the narrowing of the minimum width.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This one's in my district, and I really want to thank TJ and Alan for being willing to work with these neighbors. There were a few that, once the right-of-way was delineated, they were losing substantial sections of their driveway where, like the area where you would park 2 cars, they were losing, and a substantial piece of the front lawn in a few cases. So they were willing to do that shift to the north. Obviously, the city owns the land across the street. That's the water plant site. And so they were able to shift onto land the city already owns and then minimize the impact to the homeowners. And so the piece that's being narrowed at the very end there, that's a dead end, and it really only serves one driveway on each side, and the homes butt up to the river. So there's never going to be any traffic there other than the 2 homes. And so I am really grateful that they were able to work with those residents and really come up with something that everyone can appreciate. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Alder Rasmussen.
Question.
Alder Gisselman.
So I know there are trees over there which are sensitive, so those aren't that's not an issue in front of the.
We actually lose less trees this way, so.
Okay, good, thank you.
One particular tree still on the south side has to go, but the rest, like there's a line of trees on the north side that the north
Right,
property
right.
owner has, and those get to stay.
Okay, great,
So-
thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Alder Henke.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. And item 5 is discussion and update on DPW fleet maintenance shop site. Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. So the staff report kind of outlines, I just wanted to provide everybody an update as the direction that SISM gave us to work, take a look at that west side property that the county owns, or they own the majority of it. We had a conversation with the county. Of course, they're going through the master plan, the west side master plan, which the city is a part of. They are contemplating using that property for expansion of the park by putting an ice arena and a sports complex in that area for the majority of the property that they own. It still leaves the west side manufacturing area and possibly a piece of what they own, but it didn't sound like that there was a, I guess, overwhelming want to have DPW on that property. So we're looking specifically at the Wausau manufacturing property right now, that 6 acres, to see if that, would suffice for us, and kind of moving forward with that area and the surrounding area and see how that would work.
And that's to the east of the county site, right?
That is correct.
It's the
Yep.
piece that's
Yes.
further down?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
where all the blight is.
Right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So we're looking at doing some cost estimates and stuff on some of the various sites that we've looked at, including this one, and we'll be bringing that back to a future meeting too for consideration.
And that all could change in time too. I mean, with the county's plans, if so.
That's true. We haven't seen the West Side Master Plan, so when
Yeah.
that comes out, that'll give further direction too. So
Sure.
this was just an update.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on that?
You can. Go ahead, Alder Denny.
So if they have an eye to potentially expand the park and put an ice arena in, is it a fair statement that the existing site where the county currently has would be better suited for that, and potentially they'd be interested in the Wausau manufacturing property for an ice rink?
I'm not sure. I mean, it was just discussed that they would like to move the ice arena and possibly put a sports complex in to the south. I don't know exactly how that would lay out. I think that's just one of the options with the master plan that they're willing. So once that master plan comes out, I think we'll have a better idea with the options that the county's looking at, you know, for those properties.
And that'll happen this year yet?
I think it is supposed to happen this year. I think it was supposed to happen this summer, but I think that they're still working on some finalizing. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll see at least a draft or something will come out. Yeah.
Alder Asmussen.
Thank you. Yes, there's not a whole lot of urgency there. I mean, I think there's more urgency on our part to get
Yes.
something done because we know
Yeah.
our people need action, but, you know, their progress is certainly slow. But that said, I think that we could probably reasonably predict that it's not going to be their goal to have to go out and buy or acquire land when they already own the site that
Right.
they're using today, where, you know, whether they or we, whoever it is, the Wausau manufacturing property is going to have to be bought. And so if they already own the site that they occupy, the idea that they would want to expend more money to buy that manufacturing property is probably a long shot for them. They seem to be spending averse on stuff like that. So, you know, it's probably better for us to look at that option than to expect them to look at that option, I guess is my point.
I agree, and one other thing that, of course, I don't know, I haven't seen the master plan either, but there's that whole field behind where they stage, you know, why, they could easily put something there too, they already own that land, but
Yeah, just even seeing some of their draft plans that they asked us to vote online about during the public engagement portion, there's some pretty interesting plans there. But oddly enough, none of them included the type of use that it has today, which is sort of the use that we want it for. So the idea that we should maybe look at the piece next door is not such a bad idea. Maybe we could finish something like that quicker
and get rid of the blight.
and get rid of the blight. Amen.
Sure. And I guess my whole point is let's push back on the county, or let's not just walk away from any option if it makes more sense just for them to placehold it for some pie in the sky. This seems to be like a good fit, so let's work with them and push them a little bit.
I just have one more thing that I guess when we're talking about that sites and stuff, that West Hill Drive, there looks like they're building something out there.
I had
Where
heard
the-
that they're building, the private sector's building some type of rehabilitation center or rehab hospital of some sort.
Is that right
Up
where,
there
is that right
in
where
the-
where the land was where we
Well,
had?
that whole area was, a lot of that was intended to be medical campus, and I think there's some medical tie-in to whatever's going up out there, that I had heard from a citizen, actually. So, you know, obviously, we haven't been asked to participate or contribute to it, so we know less than we would about
Right.
other projects. But, yeah, it's some kind of a medical tie-in, though. I guess along with the same vein of the site selection process, I mean, we did briefly look with the study at the business campus, the West Business Campus, even though we were concerned a little bit about the commute. Sometimes, I mean, we know well that the way the city grows, I mean, we're growing to the west, we're not growing in the other directions, that someday what seems like the outskirts today might not be the outskirts 20 years from now. Could we take also a second look at that business campus and see if we have within there any odd-shaped parcels that are not necessarily useful for commercial use or development? And if there's something there, I mean, I know we have the little site that we've got the evidence building on, and they're looking at a range out there someday. If there's any other pieces out there that are not necessarily marketable for manufacturing use, I guess I'd like us to give them a second look, especially if the manufacturing site on West doesn't pan out. You know, just to have a better plan B.
Yeah,
So-
we can take a look out there. You know, the majority of our fleet is in the center of the town, PD, fire, DPW, so
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that, I don't think that's gonna change, and so that's the challenge with, you know, the long-range maintenance. But we can take a look at the business campus and see if
Well,
there's
the fact that
another
we
one
already
just to-
own it, you know, I'm
I
looking
know,
at trying to
'cause
find a
we
way to
don't own-
mitigate the land
Yeah.
acquisition costs, because
I
if we
hear
could
ya.
subtract that dollar figure, that
Right.
makes everything in the rest of
Yeah.
our lives easier. So-
Yeah, I think anything that we could find that we own already is definitely gonna reduce the
Well, yeah,
cost.
anytime we have to
Yeah.
buy land from the private sector, that puts us in a different spot, so, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alder Rasmussen. Any other discussion on this item? Alder Gilselman.
Well, just, so what exact, just so that the Wausau manufacturing is what is that the old ironworks or
Correct.
that? Or
Correct.
that piece of property between the Marathon County Highway Department and the Wausau? I mean, there's three sort of, the ironworks, and then there's that middle, and
Then
then.
there's
comes-
another building, I believe, and then there's a place where that building burnt down, and then there's that other building that houses
Just
a
so that,
medical thing.
I get where the ironworks is, just so that the Wausau Manufacturing is that piece of property, just so that,
That's the one we're looking at,
okay,
yeah.
great, thank you, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. On to item 6, construction update for 2022 projects.
I can start with a couple of our projects, and then Alan can finish it up. So our Project A, which is the reconstruction of Bugbee, and then also the water main replacement on Burrican campus. That project is moving forward on schedule. Right now, we're completed the water main on Campus Boulevard. We're now moving south on Burrick. The rest, the actual Bugbee reconstruction won't start until after we finish that water main replacement, and we're expecting that to begin middle to late August. Project B, which is 4th Avenue. If you've driven Bridge Street in the last week, you see where we are on that project. We're digging up the middle of Bridge, or the intersection of Bridge Street and 4th Avenue. We'll be finishing up in those southern lanes probably early next week, and then flipping the traffic over to the south side once we finish that up later next week or early the following. Again, that project is moving forward and on schedule. Project C, which is going to be the reconstruction of Torney Ave between Town Line and McDonald. That is currently out to bid, with bids opening up on Tuesday of next week. Also, the Business Campus Trail on 72nd Avenue. That is out to bid right now, with that being opened up on Tuesday as well. Construction is scheduled for possibly end of this year, or we also open that up to pushing that off to the finishing up in June of next year, because we've heard a lot of feedback from the contractors, understanding that there's going to be material shortages in this bit of or this late of a bidding process may push that project a little bit. See, the alley paving of the alley off of Cedar between 9th and 10th Avenue. Our DPW department is in there doing storm sewer this week, and then Haas will begin the actual construction of that alley next week. 4th Street. Yeah, so we're also going to be reconstructing 4th Street just outside of City Hall here, and that's not expected to begin until end of August, early September. And that should be a short one. That should only take less than a month.
A couple other projects we got going on. The asphalt overlay project, which the intersection of Grand Avenue and Kent is done, and the only thing out there is the striping. 6th Street from Jackson to Scott is going on right now. They've milled off the majority of that. If you look out there now, it doesn't look like anything's done in the last day, but they poured we had to reconstruct a couple sanitary manhole. So, the manholes were caving in, so they had to redo the top sections of those, and they had to pour the concrete back around them. So they're giving the concrete a couple days to cure, and then they're going to asphalt overlay the section that's milled, and then they'll move traffic over and mill the rest of it. So we're anticipating by the end of next week that'll all be wrapped up. Concrete pavement repair, which is several streets around the city, that has not started yet. It's anticipated to start in the middle to late August. The miscellaneous sidewalk repair project is ongoing, and it should be completed by the middle of August.
That's it? Thank you. Any questions, any concerns? Then we move on to number 7. Motion by Henke, second by Denny. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.